Welcome to Wonder and Wildflower, the podcast where we talk about the beautiful chaos of family life. I'm your host, Christine, and today I'm joined by Felicia and Nathan, and my husband, Xander.
They got me in on this.
They
got me in on that. Excellent.
Yes.
I guess
You're welcome.
Something right.
Yeah, if Nathan has to be here, I feel like you should have to be here. You got out of the last
I mean, the only reason you're friends with Felicia is because of me.
The only reason we're so close with Felicia is because of me. That we're so close right now is because of me.
The rekindleness?
The rekindle?
But no.
What we are doing.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, can't argue.
But man, I didn't get along as well.
Okay, you're shifting.
Yeah. Fine. So what did it in for you?
What made me want to be Felicia's friend?
Yeah.
She's wonderful. I will say, I think, like, we connected with our kids being similar and, like, seeing each other on Instagram and everything. But I think what was like, oh, I really like her was, like, your house just always feels like peace. Like, it just feels good. And I'm like, you want to be around people like that. Like, I like coming to your house and I'm like, I'm on vacation. I'm an hour away from home, but I'm on vacation. My kids are running laps somewhere and throwing stuffed animals from the loft, but it's fine. It's like, it just feels good. You feel good. You're a good friend. So
This is true. She's always been a good friend, though.
No, she was the only friend up here, other than the guys, that I liked when we met.
I mean,
but do you know why I always liked her?
I don't, but what I remember is there was this moment where she was very, very assertive. I felt like she like introduced herself to you. Was like, "Hey, this is who I am."
Oh, I don't remember this.
Yeah,
I don't.
You know,
I don't remember you being around.
okay. I mean, I
enjoyed it.
No,
you know what? Because I was kind of like, when we first started like chatting, I was kind of like, I'm just gonna see how things. So I wasn't really right. Yeah, I was like, let me just see how things play out, right? And then as we got to know each other, then you guys were like, wow, this guy won't shut up. But yeah. I mean, in the very beginning, I definitely was like, let me just feel it out, right? And see what's happening here.
Oh, you guys are really good friends.
Definitely.
Like, you guys just...
Yeah.
What did it in for you?
With you or with her?
What made you decide, like, to keep me?
Because you came, you came back around.
Yeah, because initially, am I allowed to say this? But initially, when you guys like were, I was like,
yeah.
She thought it was a rebound.
Was that a rebound? I was forgot about that. The
I'm really into her.
Before. Like, I legit forget. I forget about a tattoo on.
I remember you sending me a message. And you're like, I'm going. Like, you showed me the ring, and you're like, I'm going to. And I was like, he's crazy.
He's crazy. Like I told you that earlier today. I didn't think it through. I bought the ring and held on to it for 6 months. Though.
No. For 8 months.
It's the same thing.
It's just not when you're the one waiting for the ring, friend. It is not. It's that. That's the thing.
What I think when I finally realized was, like, watching you with your kids and you never giving up on him, like, I think did it for me. Like,
and that makes sense considering how much you love. Because why I always loved you, even though we weren't like close, is because I knew you loved him.
Yeah.
And you loved the Lord. And I was like, that's really all he needs. So, like, you guys can be friends as much as you want. But I think, connecting over, like, we parent similarly. We our kids are similar. Like, it was meant to be.
Yeah. I always find it fascinating when I think on
it's crazy.
And our almost 20-year relationship.
That's wild.
So it's been 20 years.
Old. We're old. We're old enough to have relationships
weird.
that last 20 years.
Yes. What is that?
No, I mean, Katie and I have been friends for 30 years. Like, we've known each other for 30 years. What? Why am I old enough to know someone for 30 years? Like, that doesn't make sense.
Do you have any friends that you can say, like, you've known? I have one friend that I've known my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a few like that, right? Like, yeah. I don't know.
Are you still as...
But we're actually, like, getting ready to plan a trip to meet one of them in South Carolina. Okay. Like, a group of us are going to take a nice little trip together. So, yeah, I mean, they've been around forever. It's, it's great. And it is crazy that it's been that long. Like, their kids are way older. Some of them don't have kids yet. It's just cool, like, us all being around. One kid, I think his kid's going to school for the first time, like college for the first year. Anyway, it's a lot. It's great though. But it's great also, like, I think when I first met Lewis, I forget the scenario. Yeah, I think I forget exactly the scenario, but I was at your house, like up.
You were at my house.
I had to pick up.
I sent you to pick up the TV stand.
Yes. And then we sat out there chatted about a whole bunch of stuff.
We did?
Yeah.
It was like, because I was not a chatting person at that time.
Oh wow.
I was a totally different person.
I thought you were
It's
totally
kind of too. Like he,
Yeah, I was a different person there. But yeah, we kind of vibed there, and I was like, man, it's a cool guy.
I do remember that. What, were you picking up the TV stand? Or
Yep.
were you dropping off the TV stand?
Yeah, I was picking it up. Yep.
That's crazy.
Dave Ramsey.
You must have loved her because that was a long process. I mean, you'd be like, I was going to get this TV stand for you.
well, we were also broke because we were just recently married. It's not like we.
Yeah, the whole wedding expense is pretty insane. But
Were you married at that time?
I believe so because it was for the guest room.
yeah, she remembers all this stuff.
I
Yeah.
mean, that was Aberdeen.
Yes. Yep. It was a hike, but yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, those.
States ago.
What do they say? It's 7 years. Like if a friendship can last 7 years, and it's a lifetime, it will last for a lifetime.
Something they say?
That's what they say.
Like the 7-year itch.
Huh.
That's interesting.
But they also have the 12-year itch.
There's a 12-year itch?
There's a 12-year itch.
I've not heard of this.
I have not heard of that either.
I
Google it
no,
because we're going to be
yeah,
married
no.
for 12 years.
No. Are we already married for 12 years?
No, this whole October.
Are you guys married for 12? You are.
They met 12. We guys 12 in October.
I'm looking it up right now. 12-year itch.
So do you guys like feel like you see your old friends a lot, or is it still like a lot like distance and
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's definitely like we have something called Guys Night Out, right? So we attempt to get out like normally it's the summer, but it used to be like once a month. Never really, unfortunately, happened. We were well for a while, and then it just kind of tapered off, and then it was like months and months. And then when one of them, one of my friends decided to go down to South Carolina. All right,
Like
it's a road trip
there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So we were like, no, now we can try to drive down there. And it kind of also, I think, put a little bit of hold on things. But yeah, it's been, for a while, it was pretty regular, but it was great. We'd go like bowling, movies, and then it started just becoming hanging out at people's houses, right? Like, because we're all older, we've got kids.
Yeah.
And it definitely, though.
Friendships definitely evolve once you have children.
Oh,
And
yeah.
can't do.
Yeah. And then we would stay out too late sometimes, right? But it is what it is. We're all good guys, right?
I remember
like,
a few
That's
remember a few stories.
yeah. But
You did, bro?
7 a.m. I was like, oh hey, what's going on, babe? She was like, what in the world?
And you got other people to vouch for you at that point because
Exactly.
Well, the group of guys is a good group of guys too. So I know what they're doing. Like
it's true, but
they
still,
just
it's 7 a.m. and you ain't home.
I also
I mean, but then now, not to be crazy, right? But like that would be silly. But anyway,
I would just assume he was like murdered.
right? And that's her
that's
thing.
my-
That was the
my
big thing.
thing.
She was like, "You're in a ditch somewhere," and you couldn't get home. So, but I just was like, "I'm not gonna call and wake you up." So,
you better.
Mm-hmm.
well, now I know.
Yeah.
Lesson learned for
So
sure.
this relationship was one that was formed in your 30s, right?
Probably late 20s.
Early 20s.
20s? Probably 20s.
Well, I'm just saying because I had been at 20.
Oh yeah, because Bennett was already. I was in my 30s at least.
Yeah. 20. I've been at 29.
How old were you at 2020? I felt like this when, I feel like it was like 20.
It might have been around that.
Like,
But
connected.
The boys were young. Yeah, maybe 2020 about that. But so yes,
When did we go to Disney?
2021
Oh,
because that's before we moved down here.
It was.
Yeah, I remember.
We were supposed to go to Disney for a wedding, right?
And we just invited ourselves on your family vacation.
And we had to still wear
masks.
masks at
was
Disney.
awful.
yeah, that was crazy.
But Disney was empty, so that was amazing.
That was nice.
But yes, this tightness formed in our 30s, which I think,
And it takes a lot of work.
yeah,
But
What do you feel like building friendships in your 20s is like? Like, do you think it's a different segment of people?
I feel like any new friends that I made, a lot of them tapered off because I was still like finding myself. I didn't have kids until I don't remember 26. So those early 20 friends, I feel like it's like some of them might still kind of be around, but no one that I'm still like super. I feel like once you get married and have kids, like there's your childhood friends, like my best friend Katie's been around forever. But then there's the friends like once you get married and have kids, like some people who aren't married and have kids don't want to hang out with people who are married and have kids.
It's true.
And then I feel like friendship making me a 30 is like the really good one. It's like, because you know who you are a little bit more. You know what you want to deal with, what you don't want to deal with, and what you're willing to put up with.
And at least with us, like we just get straight to the point with friends. Like there's no
and because we're long distance friends, we have to.
Super intentional.
And both of us like kind of stuck at like texting and calling and like,
oh, I'm so bad.
I'm so bad at it, but I love you every day and think about you, like But if
there's a picture behind you,
right?
But anytime we're in Maryland, we try to get together. Anytime you guys come down here and you do that, it's like, I do think your 30s is like a little bit more intentional and you're a little bit more aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like you're a lot. I don't actually have bandwidth for that. So see you want to see that. Yeah. And then there's the people that you're like, oh, I'm willing to be intentional and put all the effort into. You make friends everywhere you go. How do you feel about?
I feel like I don't make friends. I have here's the whole definitions thing.
Okay. He makes acquaintances everywhere.
I make acquaintances.
And then a lot of times those acquaintances turn into...
Sometimes the acquaintances turn into friends. But I feel as if you got to define the whole friend. It's not just like meeting somebody out and about. Like, oh, man, they a new friend. Well, I used to tell my younger sister when she was growing up, was like, hey, are they going to die for you? If they're not going to die for you, then they are not your friend. You die for them.
Because, like, I love you, but I need to be here to raise my children. So, like,
what was the whole scenario?
Yeah, we do that more about that. But
that's intense.
That is intense, but you always kind of operate
on the more intense
side. But you've actually made me a friend or an acquaintance. He's been out, and I've gotten a message from someone, oh, I just met your husband. He says you homeschool. Like, and I'm like, what? I'm in Costa Rica. I'm in a whole different country. And I come back to, I have a friend. And I'm like, you're so friendly. Just a friendly.
So how do you make so many, like, acquaintances as you're out and about?
And connections.
I think that, number one, I feel like I'm friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would point that back to the one verse in the Bible that, hey, if you're going to be a friend, like, you gotta be friendly. Which I don't.
Did you say that today?
Yeah, I don't know about the scriptural reference.
Nathan said that same quote today.
But yeah. It's super true. I mean, if you're looking for friends, but you're not necessarily being friendly, you're probably not going to find.
Probably not. That's something we try teaching the kids. Like, if you're not going to be kind to people, they're not going to want to hang out. Like, I'm sorry, like that person hurt your feelings or you didn't like the way they did something, but you got to be nice if you want to be friends with people. But like, if you don't care, then cool.
Yeah.
You.
What is it?
It's not just a verse. It's a proverb.
Oh.
A man that hath friends must shew himself friendly.
Oh,
King James. Look at that.
Yeah.
Nice. I didn't realize it.
And there is a friend that sticketh closer than a brother.
Oh, we don't know.
That's it. No,
This is from things in context.
Nice. That's good.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Well,
You are very fast. Yeah.
Conversation's way.
No, but so, and I will say, I know I'm your wife, so I'm biased, but you have a fantastic smile. And I think that like draws people. Like, you just look friendly. You look like someone you want to talk to.
Yeah,
it's like the heart coming out, right?
Yeah.
Like your genuine like concern, right?
That's so
Comes
kind.
out. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Kind of way to put it.
I think when people feel that, right,
Mhm.
they're ready to engage. So I know for me, I kind of try to do that, right? Like I'm like, okay, I'm going to this new scenario. I mean, you've seen me, right? Like I like to mingle in the crowd,
One thing one of my new friends said to me that stands out is, how he felt as if I was an intentional listener. Which I don't know if I always feel that way. Like sometimes I feel as if, in the way that I intentionally listen, is as a person's talking, I'm repeating what they're saying in my head. So that's when I feel like I'm being an intentional listener. But maybe it's having an ear, maybe it's the 2 ears, 1 mouth thing. But I also feel like I talk a whole lot, and
You do.
I say a lot of things that rub people the wrong way. This is so. Go ahead.
I don't know that I would say you rub people the wrong way. I think in this culture, people are not used to direct and honest people. So it might like take them aback. But I don't think like anyone's like, that guy's a real jerk. Like I think after people, like even if you've taken them aback and they're like, what? You don't say anything. Like you're not rude.
Yeah, no.
Like you're not offending anybody, but you're, this whole culture, especially because I feel like a lot of the new friends that you've made are younger than us and like 20s, right?
I don't know.
I'm thinking 20s, early 30s.
Okay.
They're just younger than us. So in this culture where like we're on our phones, especially after like 2020, they don't have people who are like, and we're all about like, oh, your feelings are so important and valid. And you'd be the one like, you feel so mad. Like, get to the reality of the situation. And so that can be like a little like, but I feel like because you're never mean and I would say you do things out of love and care for people, that's not like you might tick people. I don't think you tick anybody off.
Do you like share your opinion, or is that why you think people?
Yeah, I share my opinions more, and I state that they're opinions, right? So I feel as if that I formulate sentences to, hey, this is my perspective, not saying like this is how it is, right? This is my outlook on it. My experience have drawn me to this particular conclusion. Yeah, so I'm thinking about like one particular occasion, like I talk about sex very, very freely, right? It's for me, it's one of the things that I struggle with like throughout life, sex, sexuality, things of that nature. And so I talk about it pretty freely. And I remember this, and maybe this like the guy didn't take it this way at all, but I remember having a conversations that I think it was in a group setting and sex came up or whatnot, and talking about just our past, right? With the things that I have dealt with within our relationship, and saying that and speaking very freely about it. And I felt like once that was said, that person kind of disengaged with me. And so it seemed like the friendship was all good and dandy up until I talked a little bit more in depth. And it was like, oh, well, maybe my depth is not able to meet your depth.
Well, yes, your depth is you don't do like the small talk. Like you're gonna get to the point. If there's anyone that you feel like, can I say names?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
No, I want to say something nice.
Mm-mm.
He says no.
It starts with a J.
Oh gosh, now.
So like, like you knew that friendship. Okay, I kind of want to say names, but the friendship started in a bar, and you guys like got to talking, and then you became a big part of our life, and helped us do things and get through things. And I feel like once you know that relationship is more than just like, oh hey man, how's it going? You go right in. You don't ease anybody in. You don't like walk them through. It's not like one of those like low and there's holes where you like start off and you just kind of glide down. You just jump right into the deep end. But I think also in your 30s, like, kind of got to get there. Because that guy who couldn't, I don't know who that was, but they can't handle you talking about sex. Then
That's exactly like, I think that if we are like ourselves, we're going to, I hate the word attract, but like attract the people that are interested in us because we aren't for everyone.
Yeah.
But those that we are meant to be with, like, they're going to stay around, especially when we are so vulnerable about whatever it may be. Like, and I think with that guy, maybe it was like you maybe brought up something within him that he wasn't ready to address, and you were too much because he was stuffing.
He gonna call you in a year and be like, "Yeah, man, remember that one time?
Yeah,
I got I cannot wait for you to hear this because
Like, you know exactly people. Anyways.
I don't. But
I think we too often try to make people like us or try to fit in with like a group.
do you feel like in your 30s, like that you still try to do that?
I think sometimes I do, but I remind myself that if I'm feeling like I can't be myself, those aren't the people that I really want to be around anyways. Like I'm faking it the whole time. Why would I want to fake a relationship? Like fake who I am.
Right. You feel like,
But king caveat, really quickly, right? The reason I think that sometimes you do that, right? Like you're like, you can't necessarily completely say what you want to say because sometimes we're not in the space where we should be saying certain things, right?
So like kids are running around.
I know what you're saying. Genuinely, in a normal scenario, you're gonna share yourself. But there's sometimes we're like too much anxiety, we're in a bad space. So sometimes we do need to hold ourselves back from being too much. I'm just adding a caveat.
Maybe not being too much, but like being like too, like there's just some conversations for sometimes and some for another,
Right.
Yeah. But I think if that were the case, then this guy would come back around and be like, yeah, hey, let's do whatever. But
It's kind of like
that's one of the things I think we like that's super. You guys are fresh, open. You just jump right in, and I think we like to jump right in because there's not a lot of time, right? And there are some people that it will take like 5 years to get to that point with, right? Yeah. But others, like we jump.
But I feel like too, like like we don't talk about politics with just anybody, but we'll talk about it with you guys. Like we're a safe space where we know each other well enough. We know each other's hearts, and even if like I'm just gonna say Nathan because Nathan were to say something crazy, we'd be like, "That's not crazy."
Oh, I say a lot of crazy things. Oh yeah.
But like, if I were to say something like even if one of us was offended, we could be like, hey, like that was weird. I didn't like that. Like, what do you think?
Do you remember that one time? I think we were in Tennessee and I don't know what I said. I don't know what went down, but I remember being like, Christine, is it that time of the month? Like right after something came out of your mouth. Yes. And then afterwards I was like, oh, like that might extend. And I was like, say like, sorry if that offended you. You're like, oh, I could care less. Like
it probably was. Actually, it was because I always have my period at Wild and Free. I'm not this year though because they moved it back a week, so I should be really pleasant. I wonder what happened. I mean, it's something. There's probably something the child did or something.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the things.
What are you about to say? Think about it first. We're on camera.
So what?
Well, no, this is what's so what. We decided to play a home video for the kids the other day, and I'm like gigantically pregnant with Bennett, and like, no, Judah. And I gained like 50 pounds with this child. Like, I'm huge. And he's laying there, who's like, you got like 10 chins. You're really pale. And we're watching it in front of the kids, and the kids are like, what did you just say? And I was like, thank you for rewatching the extended for me. And he was like, I was a different person. So just remember, we're going to be able to go back and watch this in 10 years.
No, I was going to talk about sex.
Yeah. Like this time doesn't feel like
when is it not the right time? I forgot. Yeah. I had two train of thoughts, and that was one of them.
Can you find the other one?
Get what the other one was.
No. Okay. Nathan, in the workforce, do you feel like you're out, like you're half home, half in the office? Like, is it like making work friends? Is that super different?
Honestly, for me, I feel like it's super easy, right? I mean, and maybe it's because I listen, like you were saying, right? Like,
has it always been easy?
Honestly, and I will, yeah. I like the new Nathan thing because old Nathan was you go to work and you do your job and that's it. Mm-hmm. There's no time for talking. Like, we're wasting, the time that we're supposed to be working while talking. Like, what is that, right? So new Nathan, I'll go out to lunch, get to know people. People come sit in my office and talk to me like, oh, hey, yeah, whatever. So like, I had the transition where people, as a Christian, which I should have had way, way long ago, people are massively important. It's the only reason we're here. like, hey, loving God and loving people is everything. So I was like, yeah, I'm not actually doing that. So I think that that shift changed. Yeah. And then it made it a whole lot easier because I was like, all these people are eternal souls walking around. It's, like, let me see that guy and then be like, oh yeah. And then we're going to kind of be, I think we'll have like a different kind of like memory and consciousness, right? So like you may be like, oh, snap, I saw that person one time, right?
Yeah.
And it was great, or whatever, right? And then you're like, oh yeah, I remember. Anyway, I want to make sure that I'm building relationships and doing the loving that God wants me to do. And that's kind of like where my transition happened. And yeah, for work, I think it's become a whole lot easier for me.
That's cool. I like that. A tough story. What about you, Fee, as a mom? How's making mom friends in your 30s?
Making mom friends is, I think, as once you talk to people and they see that you actually care. And I do the same thing as Xander. I as people talk, I kind of am replaying it in my head. It really does help, I think, them know that you care. So it becomes a little bit easier. It's not always easy though, because let's be real, my kids are with me. And sometimes I don't have time to talk. And sometimes I walk around with my resting face. Too much.
Bulldog face.
Yeah. Did you guys ever hear growing up fix your face, pick your pants, your pants?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I tell my children to walk around telling each other to fix.
But yeah, the kids
He uses inside face. I'm like, who's your inside face? He'll look like your inside voice, but he'll look so bothered by something. I'm like, stop it. There's a time at church.
You're in public.
There's a time at church, him and another friend of his were making the most insane faces on the stage, and I was like, I'm texting him, if you just, everyone knows what you're thinking. Everyone, he could not
Thinking what everybody else is thinking.
He could not keep it together. And I'm like, this is an inside face time. You have to just reel it all the way.
Oh man, the good old days. There was a lot of fun that happened on that stage.
Good old days.
Sitting behind that person.
Not allowed to say me.
But I think that now that I'm in my 30s, I'm really questioning what is a good friend? I can make friends, but what is a good friend to me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So characteristic wise, what is a good friend to you?
To me, directly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a note.
To you in your 30s.
I might need to take notes so I can go down and note.
It worked then, didn't work now. But yeah, so right now, what would you say characteristic wise, what is a good friend to you?
So I'm an introvert. So having a friend that once in a while just calls me, or sends me a text message or, hey, let's get together, and actually planned it. There's plenty of people who say, hey, let's get together. And then they have no desire in actually planning that through. Or they're just busy. They say it and then never do it. So someone that's intentional with talking to me, as well as, so that's the thing. When they're intentional with talking to me, I'm intentional with talking to them, and vice versa. So if I haven't heard from them in a while, I'm also going to reach out to them. But also when they haven't heard from me, they need to reach out to me. That, as well as I like people that just cut to the chase. I'm not really a fluff person. And they aren't comfortable. They're fine with just cutting to the chase. What else? I don't know.
Yeah, look at it.
You're good.
It's all you.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes use my right brain.
No, I think you get it. Yeah.
Also, someone that doesn't look at me as what can she do for me?
Can you tell that
As
You're
time goes on,
probably tell, yeah.
over time?
Yeah, it's an overtime thing.
Because I think a lot of times, we talk about mutually beneficial, and I think some people do okay, I've done 5 things for you. Now it's your turn to do 5 things for, it's time for you to do something for me. I'm not really one of those people that do that.
Yeah.
Which has been interesting.
Yeah. So I think you're hitting on, since you kind of brought me in, right, with the mutually beneficial relationships, which I think are ideal relationships, right? So when you're talking to somebody, such as you guys, right? Someone's giving you something. I'm kind of I'm a quality time person, and there's information that's being shared that's beneficial to me. I'm hopefully sharing information that's being beneficial to others, and you're leveling each other up. You're growing. To me,
coming together,
right, and building the relationship, right? Those. So I enjoy learning new things. So I think that's one of the things for me that I really enjoy. But yeah, you're building the relationship is the key. But I think for like different people, like I guess so for me really it's like the way Felicia goes and kind of she brings in a lot of people that like to share and things like that, right?
Oh,
And then
yeah.
not necessarily sharing as much back. Anyway, so to me, and I have a lot of opinions, right? So I always try to share with them, right?
I think he's trying to say that
basically,
I have a way of bringing in like all the like broken, but okay, we're all broken, but like the people that like need to go to therapy.
where you like, yeah,
I'm a really good listener.
You are.
But those that are really good listeners, sometimes I spend so much time listening and the person wants to talk that they're never asking me about me. So I've spent with like 2 hours with someone at times and they've talked about themselves the whole time. And
to
like,
me, that's not mutually beneficial, right? So that doesn't scream healthy to me. But
I think I've realized now that it's more of like a mentor relationship versus a mutually beneficial relationship.
right, and those are good and necessary. But like your primary relationships, I think should be like mutually beneficial. But that's just my perspective.
Can I answer the question? I have one more thing. I'm going to answer.
I feel like you got to answer it for yourself.
Well, because I agree with her, like, on the things that she said. But I would add, like, one thing that I love, and, like, I think maybe not makes, like, but that someone that you can just do nothing with. Mm-hmm. Like, I can just sit on your couch and drink a cup of coffee, and it's, like, the most wonderful time ever, even though it's not really doing a whole lot. Yeah. But I like what you said. I think that all those things are important. And I think that, like, yes, of course, there's going to be times where, like, your friend might need to unload on you.
Oh, yes.
But if it's, like, the norm all the time, then maybe it's not most beneficial. But, like, one thing is I miss most about one of my friends up north is, like, we would just sit and, like, nap sometimes. We didn't even, like, talk sometimes. We would just, like, take naps and hang out, and our kids have run wild. And I think those simple, nice relationship. And then she's someone I call when my world's falling apart also. But we can also take a nap on the couch and feel like we spent so much time together.
On the couch.
Yeah. And it's still a healthy thing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said just with that. If you're talking about what I believe you're talking about is, and this has happened at your place, right? Like, I've taken naps on your couch, right? And so just being able, and this is the point that I wanted to bring back up, being able to be comfortable enough within a friendship to, like, you don't have to sit and talk, right? Like, you can just be with one another, and it's almost like her and I watching TV, and just watching episodes, although we end up talking or, something through it. But the point that I wanted to bring back up is something that you said earlier was a safe space. Mm-hmm. And so how do you think you create a safe space within friendship?
Oh gosh, I think so bad at not saying names. This one friend in particular that I'm thinking of, we became friends like almost immediately after I moved here. And I feel like she's such an intentional friend that, like, I don't think I've ever told her what my love language is. I don't think I've ever, like, had to explain anything about myself to her. Like, I've seen her and I've been in horrible moods or in great moods. She was, like, one of the first people there when Bennett broke his arm. A couple weeks ago, I went to her house to pick something up and I walked in the door and she was like, "What's wrong?" And I immediately start blubbering. Like, those people who are so intentional about getting to know who you are, like, my love language is, what is it? Gifts and words of affirmation. So, like, tell me I'm pretty, buy me a present. And she does those things all the time. Like, I walk up and she's like, "Oh, here's a present because you came back to Florida." I'm like, "What?" But she has no idea. But, like, when you're so intentional on getting to know even the things that aren't being said, and you can, like, I think that is the safest space. And there's people that you can be super vulnerable with, and, like, people who know our story and know what we've been through and can still love both of us. Like, yeah. That provides, like, a really safe space. So, like, when you can just be yourself and you don't have to, like, when y'all were coming, I was at work beforehand. I didn't know if this place was going to look like a bomb. I was like, it's she and Nathan. I don't care. Like, we did the best we could with the time we had, you know? Like, I think, like, those places where you can truly just be yourself and you can cry and you can yell and you can apparently PMS at a wonderful conference and I have no recollection of it. I don't know what I really, but I think those are, like, the things that make it feel safe and beautiful and just, it makes it easy. Like, being your friend is easy. Like, yes, it takes some effort in planning trips and everything because we're long distance, but, like, there's never a time where I'm like, oh, so much work. But, like, you know, it's just enjoyable.
Yeah.
What about you? So the question was, what do you think it takes to create a safe space within friendship and relationship?
I think with me, when I share something with someone and it stays with that person, it makes a big difference. Like, that's like a safe space for me. But if I share something like, and not like what I ate for the day, like something like really personal. But when I share it with someone and then like someone else is telling me information I know I didn't give them, the same information I just gave this person that I trusted, that completely turns it off. And it's sad to say that I kind of like test people. Like, I'll throw like a little piece of information out and then just like wait to
See where it trickles.
Yeah.
See where it pops off at.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, mutual vulnerability is one of the ones that you're like, okay, so you're willing to share everything, right? You know, or I'm ready to, you know, so it just makes it easier to share. I think that's, yeah, I think being able to go deeper, and that's just me, obviously, but like, yeah, I think that's one of the big things. Of course, it's huge too, right? Knowing that it's not going to then be broadcast all over the world, is big. But yeah, I think that's one of the big ones for me. It's just mutual vulnerability.
Yeah, it's a shocker. You two are friends. I don't know what happened there.
I don't know either. I was not that person.
No, but I do think the vulnerability is a big. It like almost takes your relationship to the next level. Like, yeah, you can be close to somebody, but until, like, you know, they know your struggles, like, there's still always going to be a level of you they don't know.
But it's not only that, because I've shared my struggles with people, right? I would say I almost wear it on my sleeve.
Mm-hmm. I would have taken.
But it is not always reciprocated.
Right. So like, yeah, having someone share.
As you said, the word was mutual vulnerability, right? And so, because I could be vulnerable, and I'm okay with a person not being vulnerable back for a period of time, right? I understand, like, comfortability, and sometimes people have to, like, work up to it. But then if, like, no vulnerability ever comes, that's hard for me.
Yeah.
So, all right, that brings another. I'm sorry, can I ask another question?
Of course, you're the boss. You run the show.
I mean, I guess it's hard. Two thoughts. One is, I feel like I don't want this particular podcast. It'll just be female driven, right? Like, I understand that the whole, like, homeschool thing.
I mean, you're here, so.
True. Yeah. So there's that part. He's here. So there's that part to it.
He and I can go to bed if you can. We're dead tired.
We're done. It's a wrap.
We'll go sit outside.
It's a wrap. You may not want to sit out there. Posse, you come.
Not for out there. So, okay, you don't want this podcast to be female driven, and then what was the other thought?
I lost it.
Oh my gosh. So, well, I'm not going to talk now because I'm not female.
What was it? What's the book?
It's female driven.
No, I'm not. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so all right, as a dude out in the world, do you feel like it is harder to, like, just strike up conversation as you've gotten older, or do you feel like it's easier? Because I feel like a lot of our friends have been from just random, like, our core group have either been from me randomly striking up conversation and, like, forcing people to be my friend, or you doing it. So did you say that's something that was easier? Let's just say, like, since we've moved. So we moved to Florida 3 years ago. Yeah. And we have this insane group of amazing friends. How do you think we got there? Do you think that the conversations started easily, or?
All right. So I think there's two ways of answering this. One is because eh, you, and I don't know if we've always been this way or we just came to Florida and it's just been
Been what way?
easy to have conversations, easy to have friends, easy to form friendships and spark up random conversations with strangers, or if it's just always been. I know it's not always been that way for me.
That's not always been. That was definitely for me as a mom moving our 5 and 7 year old, brand newly 5 and 7 year olds, away from everything they know and love.
Mhm.
My sole goal was to make them friends so that they felt like this was a place they wanted to be and they were happy. And at the time we were only planning on being here for 7 months. And I was like, I don't even care if it's for 7 months. I want those 7 months to be wonderful and for them to feel okay. So that's why I forced people to be my friend.
So the reason that I started off with you is because there is a handful of friends that were made because you were friendly. And those people had husbands. And you never know like how that thing is gonna work out. We're like, you got houses. What I do find that is very, very interesting is that a lot of the relationships that are forming into friendships, a lot of them have similar stories to us. And I find that very, very interesting. It's like we're not.
That was also the case in Maryland.
You're right. That's true. People are, I don't know, I think it's weird. Not weird. I guess, no, I guess it's definitely a Holy Spirit thing. Because it's not something that we can explain. That, like, the number of people is crazy as far as people that have the similar or just like kind of the same pattern. Maybe not like totally similar, but it's still in that vein. So,
What about the Southern hospitality? Like, I think somewhat you were talking about maybe that earlier.
Well,
Like, does that play a role in like the ability to make these connections?
kind of. Like everyone here is super, super nice, but I think like what we talked about earlier is we're all transplants. Like there's barely anyone from here. So I think everyone that maybe not everyone, but most people that we're very close to right now, except for one that I can think of, they are new to the area too. So, and their families aren't here either. So they have to make friends also. So I think everyone's a little bit more open to the connections because you're like, well, I'm either going to be a hermit or I'm going to have to talk to this person. Like those are my options right now. But I do think the culture down here is just like everyone's friendly and we live in a beach town. Everyone's on vacation. Like it's a happy-go-lucky kind of. Well, I got some weird things happening here, but it's mostly. I mean, it's Florida and it's a wild, wild west. Like there's not a whole lot of rules or anything. It's real wild, but I would say mostly because we're all like transplants and we needed community.
Yeah. And conversely, right? Like in the areas where people aren't transplants,
Like our
it is it's I think it is super hard to like make connections
because you have to
people
infiltrate
already
friend groups.
yes because they already have established groups, right? Like I've been in Maryland my whole life, like, and then I've already got like several siblings and we've got events, so there's all kinds of things already happening. Whereas if we were to leave and go somewhere else, we wouldn't have any of that and we'd have to start over. But
I mean, if you came here, you would have friends.
that is true. That is very true.
You would have friends.
it'd be like me. My friends moved here. I moved here. My friends moved away. I was like, I can't. You went too far south. I can't go to the place I was in. I love you very much, but thank you on that place.
Stay right here when you come.
Oh, but yeah. So the making the whole teen having the relationship first, and then seeing how the dad situation is going to work out. Now,
I really lucked out.
And the kids too, right?
The kids,
like if the kids don't get along, then there may be tension.
Yeah, I think most of us like came together because we realized like, okay, our kids kind of like, I mean, Asian, sorry names, we just became friends and the rest of y'all had to figure it out. But so most of it was like, oh, my kid's talking to their kid, like, oh, maybe we should connect. And I mean, the amount of time I've given my phone number to strangers is like really high since we've been here. But I think you kind of like see how the kids connect. And then, okay, the moms connect. They're like, all right, we'll bring the dads in and see what goes on.
All right, so making friends in your 30s with being a parent first goes by your kids.
I'd say majority of
Like if that's the first checkbox is, hey, do the kids get along?
I kind of feel it.
I mean, first, like, it's got to start with the connection between the adults, right? Like, first you're like, you meet them, you're like, oh, okay. And then, of course, it is the kids too, right? But like, you may be able to go on one-on-ones with the adult, maybe, right? But if you want to kind of have like a real like group, then you've got to have, first you meet the person and you're like, oh yeah, this works. Now our kids, how are they doing over there? Oh, they're doing well? Okay, we're good. Now let's bring the...
I think I flip it though, because like I'm thinking of like other friends that like we met at like homeschool playgroup. Like I don't think I talked to any of the moms until I would be like, oh, like my son's playing with your son. And maybe that was just like the conversation starter. But yeah, you definitely have to like feel people out and be like, can I? And I do watch on like how parents treat their kids. Like if you're yelling and berating them, we can't be friends. Like I just can't. If you're like cussing them out at the playground because they tripped over their shoe, like we're not friends. Like we're never gonna be.
I made one for you.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to your motivation, right? Like it was about the kids.
It was 100%
right?
about the kids.
So that's so for me, it's always about, which sounds hard, right? But it's like, okay, for guys, it's a little different, right? Like we're not necessarily, taking our kids to other places. So it's first to me. So it's totally different for the wives. It's first to me, right? And then we're like, okay, now we'll try to have the wives and kids. It's kind of just dunk them all in.
Did I ever tell you about my Instagram date when I first moved here?
You had an Instagram date and you went on a blind date with him.
I went on a blind date with Felicia.
Where'd you meet him?
Just make friends. Wow.
Are you going to tell it? You want me to you tell it?
So yeah, I'll tell it. So, how we've had conversations about church, right? And how I feel about churches. So
how you feel about the American church culture?
Yes. How I feel about the American church culture.
We can't get canceled. Have a good start.
Anyway, so we've had conversations about how I feel about the American church culture. So one of the churches that we went to visit when we initially moved here, and I'm like taking everything in, and I'm like, oh man, like it is really a hard pill for me to swallow to come here. I felt so disturbed is the wrong word. Disgusted is way too harsh. I felt
bothered.
Very, very, very bothered. And so bothered that I made an Instagram video about it. Instagram reel about it. I put the reel up, right? And I made maybe like 3 or 4 different videos. Now, they're like 60-second clips, right? So super short. And there's one guy, he ends up DMing me.
A dude slid into his DMs.
A dude slid into my DMs, right? And was like, hey, how this resonated with him and such. And I was like, cool, if you're like in the, I was like, what area are you in? And he tells me what area he's in. I was like, oh man, you're not too far. I was like, hey, there's a coffee shop. Would you like to meet up at the coffee shop and like just chat? So we did that once or twice. And then, so that was my Instagram date. And then to your point, we started talking about the wives. They ended up living in Maryland previously. And so, like, we're finding more and more information about each other, right?
Yeah.
So then I think it was Super Bowl.
No, they were considering homeschooling. And
I missed that part because I wasn't part of that part.
Oh, yeah. We can... Because we still like homeschooled through Maryland when we first got here until like the end of the school year and we wrapped up, I wasn't sure what the laws of Florida were. So we were going to this conference like how you homeschool in Florida. They did the same thing, but their kids were in charter school. So like we met, like Wade and I was like super impressed with like how well behaved their children were. Mm-hmm. And then this one invites them to our house for dinner.
Because as I told you earlier today, how I feel about breaking bread, like having a meal with someone, right?
What he didn't mention to me was that she was a classically trained chef.
I don't think I do that.
You should have. I was like, I'm cooking for a chef. I got tacos. Okay, make you a taco. And then they came over and I was like, all right. And I hadn't like met her, like I'd seen her. And I was like, hey, the kids go to school. They're going to leave at like 9. It was like a Wednesday or something random. They stayed until after midnight and pulled their kids out of school 2 weeks later. And
Was it 2 weeks later?
yeah.
Wow.
They definitely ain't going to school the next day, though.
They definitely not going to.
Like, they left our house like 12 o'clock midnight.
And we were
like 12, 1 o'clock. Like, doubly.
And now she's one of my closest friends.
But yeah, all started with a mandate.
No.
And I slid in my DMs.
I was like, what are the odds that this dude like lives 15 minutes from us? I did drive by the coffee shop to make sure that he was alive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a question. With making these connections and friends, how do you maintain those friendships, especially when there's more than just like one person?
I made all my friends be friends with each other. I just kept inviting everyone to everything. And I mean, there are like little like sects of us that like, we will hang out a little bit more because our kids do like the same sports. And so there's a couple of us, like our kids do homeschool PE together. Then they all play sports together. And then we all do our little fun Friday thing together. So there's a few of us that are together all the time. But I think they just all kind of just started to hang out. And there are times where like we'll go out with one of them or the other. He's really good about being super intentional and just like checking in with people and, hanging out and saying, hey, how you doing? Like he's very good about that. I'm less good at that, but I am very good at a play date. Like if you I normally like in the beginning of the week, I'll be like, hey, I'm doing these things on these days if anyone wants to join us. And then it's up to you if you want to join us. But he's definitely really good about being intentional. And I think because it's easier because it is a family thing. So like I love football. So during the football season, everyone bring a crock pot with something in it and we're going to watch the game. I think including everybody makes it a little bit easier. Having girls' nights, like we try to do that once a month. There was a time it was once a week. Me and one friend would go out more often, but
As a follow-up question, was there any time in your life where you attempted to like keep multiple relationships and not bring them all together? Like, okay, this is a friend here, there's a friend here, there's a friend here.
I don't know if it was ever like a thing before. Like, I don't think I was ever consciously like aware of it before. Because like I had my friends that I homeschooled with, I had my friends that went to church, I had my friends from high school. No, I don't think I ever really like mushed them all together. Okay. But I think probably towards the end of our like time in Maryland, our friends were mostly our church friends.
Yeah.
With like a handful of homeschool friends.
Because we talked about this. I think that was one of our things. We're like, we have so many segmented friends, right? Yeah. Like, we've got to find a way to like get them all together. Because that's, yeah. And then the problem is when we do that, then we're like, man, we didn't spend much time as we wanted to talking to this person, right? So, but maybe just having a bunch of those, we can kind of like still work through the group. It's still not going to be as personal. So we're both introverts, right? And introverts love one-on-one conversations. So when you're in a large group, it just makes it hard.
Yeah. I mean, it's always difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe that's not what's best for your relationships. Like, I think the relationships look different for other people too. Like, he needs to be out talking to everybody. I literally had to stop him from talking to someone at Target the other day because they had an Oreos had one. Like, you don't need to be his friend right now. Like, I'm tired. I want to go home. Like, we don't need to talk to him. So he's definitely way more like random encounter, outgoing, like me. We went out for tacos one night and he's like, knows the guy who's sitting next to me at the bar's name by like 2 minutes in. Like, how did you get here? Like, it's actually takes me way longer than this. Like, I hang out for you out for a while, like, especially the friends we meet, like, through some of the things we do weekly. I'm watching you for like 3 weeks before we're making that move. He's like, hey, Eric, how's it going, man? Like, he knows his wife's backstory. Like, it's a whole thing.
So Xander, with you, your relationships, like your friendships are normally like individual. Like you don't really get all of them together at once, do you?
I find it more difficult to get them all together at once, juggling different people's schedule. Also, I do things that some other people don't do. For example, in my 30s, I have grown into smoking cigars, right? Not everyone smokes cigars. And so, but I thoroughly enjoy sitting down with a guy, so it's like you can learn so much because all you have there, like most, like at least the guys that I have done that with, we're not staring at our phones, right? Like the phone is down and we're having a conversation and you smoke the cigar and that's a whole time period all in itself. And so it is more difficult because I do things that certain people don't do, right? So some of them are like, oh, we'll go to the movies, right? And they're good moviegoers. I do try to bring all those people together at times. It doesn't always work, but the invitation, like if we're having a gathering, right? We're having dinner or a football game or something. I invite everybody over. Just sometimes it doesn't work out.
Literally, the only consideration we take is like everyone has a lot of kids. I'm like, are the children going to break the house? Like,
or feeding them all.
well, then that's when we start being like, all right, everyone brings something to share. Because if everyone brings something to share, there's enough, and everything's fine.
Do you have any issues with like? I think drinks are always an issue for us, anyway. But like, are there any things that like sometimes just kind of fall off? You're like, oh wait.
Well, this is the other thing, and this might help with the whole like, if you're anxious about it, I don't care. You're thirsty, there's water. Like, you have to stop caring.
That is true.
Like,
yeah.
You gotta just, like, hey.
Because I'm like, man, I've got to go get the sodas, which we don't drink.
Yeah.
I got to make sure everyone's got what they want. You don't need to do that.
Like, if I'm felt like if it's Super Bowl and it's,
right.
like this year when the Ravens go to the Super Bowl, I'm gonna have like the best spread ever. Like, it's gonna be amazing. But if it's like a Sunday afternoon and I've been at church or, we went to and I'm tired, I don't care. Like, there's going to be a dirty dish in the sink. Our one friend loves eating over the sink, so it doesn't matter. And it's going to be every time he eats right over the sink. I don't understand. But you have to eventually just be like, if these people want to come over and hang out with us, and they want to come over and hang out with us, they don't care if I have soda. Because I stopped buying sodas because then no one was drinking them, and then they were leaving them here. And I love soda, and I don't want to drink it, so it can't be here. Same with the kids. They see soda, they start twitching because they don't know. I'm like, it can't be here. So like, at some point, you gotta be like, listen, I want this to be a beautiful place. I want people to feel loved and welcomed here. A lot of times, that has nothing to do with what sodas you have, what food you have, and if it is that for them, then they eat your front row.
Right.
And that's your top spot.
Food is pretty, like, if the food's good, that's an extra
Yeah,
perk.
okay, and
Especially with a chef.
As I know, well, I've stopped. I know
You just know that her food's gonna be
better.
Yeah.
I'll make food, and like her kids will be like, "Oh, this." I'm like, "You don't have to act like it's that good."
Like this cake.
I know it's not that good. I appreciate your politeness. I really somebody all the time. I would eat anything she does.
We got one of those friends that is a chef. I mean, every time we go over his house,
birthday parties are
amazing. It's insane, and the amount of money too is pretty a lot. But yeah, he's just like he's a hoster, right? He just puts the full spread.
And that's what my mom is like. My mom loves that, and I love having people around.
Yeah.
I'm getting better as a host, I feel like, but I'm not the best host. But I think as far as creating friendships and meaningful ones, like
you're right. Yep. Yeah. And I think that's something that I've got to grow into, because it definitely has been like, because like growing up, it was like one of the big things is you can't run out of food, and so like Felicia knows, she's like, oh, go get us some stuff, right? I'm gonna get the most.
He's gonna get extra.
I'm gonna get extra.
One bag he's grabbing
right.
too.
So I guess if I'm doing, and I need to stop doing that, because if I'm always doing that, it just becomes crazy, right? Like, and then we do have sodas in the cooler for weeks, right? Because we're not drinking it. We're like, oh, well, there goes that wasted or whatever.
We have one friend that invited us over, and it was a last minute, and that's how they like doing events. The day they have some time available, they just send a message to everyone and say, hey, come over. There will be dinner, but bring something. And that way they don't have to think it all through.
Right.
And we're like, you can have time to clean and.
Yeah, we do like, hey, we're grabbing pizza and going to the beach. Like,
yeah,
let's just
that's good.
Keeping it simple and reminding yourselves like this is, yes, all those things are nice. Like my one friend, she throws beautiful parties and gorgeous dinners, and she does fun stuff like mom's picnics, and she makes a whole beautiful spread, and it's beautiful and wonderful, and it's an amazing gift that she has. But if you don't have that gift and that's not your jam, that shouldn't stop you from having friends and hosting and because that. Right for my jam. I do love hosting and I love taking care of people, but it's not going to get that pretty.
No. Well, I mean, which to me, in the grand scheme of things, if you have that gift, then awesome. But in the grand scheme of things, if the people and building the friendships, because at least for us, the only way that you could really get to know someone, really, at least to me, like for example, recently got back into going to a church building every once in a while, and the worship leader there, I saw her and was like, hey. I don't think I freaked her out. I was like, hey, I was playing, and after we finished playing, I was like, the only way that I would, really get to know people is like sitting down having a meal. It's like, mind if you and your family come over, like just random, like she's like, yeah, let me get you my husband's number.
And that's a good point. That's a good point. Because a lot of people, my mom actually taught me this. She was like, always just use your spouse as a way out, which I thought was interesting. She was like, yeah, I got to talk to my wife or whatever. But,
I mean, sending her a message when Kristen's like, hey, this is my wife. Like, you guys can connect and make this happen. But I want to sit down and have a meal and get to know you. Like, especially someone that, you're quote unquote like serving with at church, right? And I feel like at least worship, like there has to be some whole different podcast episode, but there has to be some gel, between, in order for me to vibe off of you, you vibe off of me, and we have like this connection, in the spirit. Anyways.
So I think one question, because I have a friend who likes to invite people over his house. I don't know if his wife necessarily likes it all that much, but how does that come at, like, do you guys have any of that kind of tension? Like, oh, come on over, but you're pretty much good with it, right?
Yeah, we're.
How do you feel about like the whole house not being, when the house is like not in the best shape?
What do you mean? Like the outside?
No, the inside, and like people coming, like the random people who come over.
Could that definitely happen?
Okay.
I feel like since we've been
I feel like we're talking about two different things, but go ahead.
No, I mean, like if someone were just to drop by.
No, not drop by. It's like, oh, such and such is coming by.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, I don't want it to like smell bad, but I think I do a pretty good job of housekeeping that it doesn't. Like, I feel like, I know we've been teaching the boys, because we want them to clean their own bathroom and not be gross, is our house needs to be okay, that if someone were just to drop by, that it was fine.
Because there are kids here
There are kids all the time. But like, hey, make sure your toilet's clean enough that if someone has to use it, they don't want to throw up. I'm like, could you do that for me? Or like when we leave for homeschool PE, I'm like, so I don't get home until like 12:30. I'm like, hey, I want the kitchen clean so that when we come home, like if you invite a friend over, because a lot of times we're like, hey, do you want to come to my house and play? Mm-hmm. It needs to be clean. Like, so, but I mean, at this point, I think I'd be fine with.
All right. So we talked about, let's make this like the last thing. So we talked about making friends in the 30s. How do you feel making friends in your 30s? How do you feel like we are teaching our kids friendships and how to make friendships? It may not be the reality because we're not seeing what they see, but what do you think?
I mean, I like to have those conversations with them, right? Like, and one time I tried to tell them who their best friends were, which I don't know why they didn't like it, but I'm saying
each other. Like,
no, it wasn't. I was like, outside of your brother, I think this is your best friend. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, no, I mean, I just like to kind of have those conversations and say, how do you, this is how I like to make friends. You have to be friendly. We talk about being friendly. Like, if you're like, man, why don't I have any friends? You're probably not being friendly. Like, and then I think there's certain dynamics for different kids. Like some of them are like a little more anxious, right? So going to those settings isn't really their cup of tea. So you just kind of work through some of those, but every kid's different, right? So for our kids, we just work through the social anxiety piece, if there is any, and then walk them through. Like I'm going to go through, I was telling Felicia, there's all kinds of great books out there. If you know love languages, if you know about love banks and like how you build relationships, there's great books on all this stuff. So when they get to that age, I'm going to definitely be like, hey, you've got to like learn these principles. Helps with dating, helps with everything. But like having those conversations is what we started. So
I think I have a lot of conversations on what makes a good friend on the yes, you talk about like them being a good friend, but also like what makes a good friend. And I like really appreciate the fact that my kids are able to determine like if someone is a good friend based off of what they do, how they act with other kids, how they act towards each other. Um,
And grace is important too, right?
oh yeah, there's totally grace. Like
That
that
might
might
be the hardest thing to teach them at this age, I think. Because kids are very black and white.
Yeah.
Like if you have a friend, like a couple years ago, Judah got in a fight, an argument with a friend, and the friend was being really, really mean.
Yeah.
He was also 7, going through the worst time of his life, and where you gotta have grace for that time,
yeah.
you know. And then like, but where's the balance between like grace and being a walking mat, and you know those things. I think those are the hardest things for us to teach the kids. Like, when does grace come?
Because it's very complicated. I mean, most adults don't even have it.
And it is hard for
Yeah, because you do get to that point where you're potentially enabling, like, and we talk about that amongst themselves, right? Like, hey, you know, if your brother keeps doing the wrong thing, like maybe you want to tell us, like, you know, otherwise he's gonna think. So, like, case in point, I guess, you know, one's like just shoving the other, like, or whatever, right? And he's not really telling anybody. Like, hey, man, like, as soon as it becomes physical, you got to tell him. If you're not telling on him, you're actually like helping him to continue this behavior, which is not loving. So like, let's just tell us, please.
Yeah.
Right.
We also talk. I also talk to them about like, if you're acting a certain way with your brother, he's going to think that if other people act like that, that's okay. And it's not always, that behavior is not always okay.
Yeah, it's like, there's been times where you were like, hey, you're being a jerk. Like, and you're not gonna have friends if you are a jerk.
Yeah, I think, and of course I'm guilty of coddling and babying my sweet little perfect boys, but I think a lot of times we do them a disservice if we're like, oh, like it's okay. No, like you are actually really being mean. Like you need to not be that way. Or, you know, like one of them is a little bit more controlling of situations and wants to be the boss. Like not everyone likes that. And if there's 2 of you that want to do that, you're gonna have to learn. You're gonna have to learn how to be the one that like steps aside and is like, okay. Yeah, I think just being like honest with them, and then even once, like, because we've had now a couple of instances where friends have been unkind, like once the emotions have cooled down, be like recently something happened and we thought he handled it beautifully, and we complimented him on that. We're like, that was very mature of you to walk away and to catch your breath and not just to like keep going at it. You know, he like dropped his rope in a sense. And then there's another situation which personally I think he should probably get over at this point and make it work, but he's mad. And so like, but when they're calm enough, be like, hey, like logically speaking, like on a scale of 1 to 10, like where does this infraction land? Like, was this really worth the past couple of years of friendship? Like, or was it not? And trying to like navigate, like how serious is this really? Because like a kid stealing your ball probably shouldn't have you mad 3 weeks later. And we gotta kind of get the feelings under control, I think.
It's pretty cool because we're almost creating that CBT, that cognitive behavioral therapy model with our conversations with them. So they kind of step back in third person and they're like, is this how I should be thinking about it? Which I think is great.
Anyone else have any thoughts on friends in your 30s?
Friends in your 30s.
I'm very grateful for my friends in their 30s. Well, you're 40, but we'll still let you in like
you were eight in the 30s.
I was close.
You were 8 in the 30s.
Oh, that took me a minute. I was like,
Yeah, like our friendship was established in the 20s. I knew of him in the 20s, but it was established.
It was me. I made the mental error, and well, we're so glad you guys could do another podcast with us, with my handsome hubby.
Thanks for having us.
Definitely. Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, thank you for joining this episode of Wonder and Wildflower. Good night.
What if it's daytime?
Have a great day.
Jim Carrey was good morning, good afternoon,
Is it good?
good night.
Good night. Yeah.